Do we want to get started?
There we go.
Okay. I end this month with a special prayer. May the broken be healed. May the sick be restored. May happiness return to those in despair. May the lonely be loved. May the hungry be fed. And may our world be at peace.
Oh,
Nice.
that's lovely. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think I've said it before, but I like that prayer.
Yeah. All right, Kevin, the floor is yours.
Okay, well, I'm not just sure how I ended up here, because for me to do this sort of thing is tricky. But I found the dialogue on what am I talking? The quantum field. Yeah, my mind had a brain fart. The quantum field, and I connected with it when I realized that, like, when I was 12, I was hearing a sermon about that we're all imbibed with the Holy Spirit. And in my 12-year-old brain, I had this little flicker of Holy Spirit living within me, no matter what I did or how long I lived or whatever. And then when I started hearing about quantum field, I wasn't quite making a connection until I believe it was Charlie said about mentioned that is where the Holy Spirit lives. And then it was like a light bulb went off in my head. And I think I interpreted as, we each have a speck of the Holy Spirit, but when it goes on to the quantum field, we're all one. Our spirits are each individual flicker just becomes one massive being, power, you name it. And it's what gets the world done. So after church, a lot of the time I do homework on the topic, especially if I'm not that familiar with it. So I decided to go to YouTube to see what they had to say. And I was interested as into what different faith, what their opinion of it was. Overall, I found it very good. Some of it totally baffled me, but I started off baffled, so I wasn't surprised. Uh, Other things were wonderful and warm and nurturing and were definitely spiritual filled. But then there were some, and it was almost frightening. The man was standing waving this big Bible the size of a suitcase, hammering it and saying, if this Holy Bible does not legitimize quantum spirit, doesn't exist, and it's all of the devil. And I just went, I don't think so. I don't have that much medication to watch you.
Yeah.
But uh, then I made that comment last week, and you, Nikki, always the opportunist, said, oh, why don't you talk about that next week? And I said yes, and then I thought, that wasn't a good idea. But then I turned to AI because my mind doesn't work the way it should, and AI helps me to organize my thoughts and whatever. And I want to look at the quantum field and how it was the tenets of of what faiths I didn't know when I started, of how many faiths incorporate the quantum field. Well, it turns out every faith does, and every non-faith does in their own way. So I just wanted to look at it today and see how each faith tradition, how the principles of quantum field manifest in their community work and their community contributions. And to start with, there are so many words. We describe it as spirit, spark, presence. So we all have our own understanding, and we almost treat it as separate. They're the same words, but with the same heart. And it's the heart that gets things done in the quantum field. As far as I'm concerned, I mean, I'm no theological expert or scientist or whatever. So you're gonna get it from a idiot's point of view because I don't profess to be a expert. It's just you want to know my learning process. Well, this is kind of it. So expect no different. The quantum field is a field of, to put it simply, it's described as a field of shared field of possibility. Anything is possible on the quantum field. And a couple of weeks ago, for the Mother's Day service, if you haven't seen it, we explored the three versions of motherhood, and one was the mycelium base, and that is where the entire Earth structure more or less connects with an invisible track throughout the Earth's floor to nourish the base, and it doesn't move in a straight line, but it does one or the other. And the one thing that the quantum field shows within us is that we know we are not the only ones benefiting and accepting the gifts, but quantum field works. We are also giving benefits and giving gifts. It's a back and forth thing. And I already did that. Okay. Then I thought, okay, I wanted to look into various faith traditions. So bear with me. There's a fair amount of them, but I want you to see what their spark was or whatever, and how it reflects in that community faith practice works. Starting off with Christianity, they understand the Holy Spirit as a force of compassion and unity. And this shows up in community work through care for the vulnerable, hospitality, and building supportive relationships. And Judaism speaks of rock and I tripped over these words, Shekinah, and the indwelling spirit. And this becomes community work focused on education, justice, ethical responsibility, repairing the world through concrete action. And Islam, they use a word, ruh. And that takes me, and I love that word because you just breathe it out as though you're blowing out a birthday candle. And to me, that just has so much symbolism to it. And it means breath and spirit, and the breath of God placed within each person is how Islam treats it. And this inspires generosity, clarity, hospitality, and enduring and ensuring no one is left without support. In Hinduism, teaches that the divine is present in every soul. This leads to service without ego, honoring the dignity of all people, and creating harmony in community life. In Buddhism, understands the reality of interdependent. Nothing exists alone. This becomes community work centered on reducing suffering and offering compassion and supporting mental and emotional well-being. in Taoism sees the Tao as a natural flow that moves through everything. This shows up in community work through conflict resolution, balance, helping people find peace and simplicity. Within the spiritualist tradition, spiritual and mediumship speak of energy, presence, continuity, spirit. This becomes a healing circles, grief support, compassionate listening, and helping people feel accompanied rather than alone. Modern pagan and earth-based traditions talk about the spark of life force and the web of life. This shows up in stewardship of the land, honoring ancestors, protecting culture, and nurturing healthy relationships. Humanist and secular perspectives focus on shared humanity, empathy, and social connection. This becomes community work centered in inclusion, social justice, mutual aid, building spaces where everyone belongs. Now, that's just a list of a few of them. And I looked at the list and it occurred to me, I think that list includes just about everybody in the world. I don't know, there may be a grandmother in Newfoundland who wasn't on the list. But looking at the list and what each community does with their quantum field knowledge, everybody is taken care of in that list. Some people concentrate on legal affairs, some people concentrate on grief, some people concentrate on health, some people concentrate on being a lawyer. But all in all, the divine set it up so everyone is taken care of. And also, we aren't alone. We're attached by a mycelium of spirituality. And my work here is forced by somebody else on the field who lives out in British Columbia, and we work copacetic. And eventually, as we all work together, we get things done. And we are one with the divine who makes it all possible. So the quantum field is, some people call it heaven, and some people, everybody has a different description for it, but it's all the same thing in our hearts. That's about all.
I want to also point
I
out, I
just,
loved that you named that photograph behind you, the mycelium hearts.
yeah, well, that's how I prompted it into
Okay.
AI.
Okay.
And each heart has a different aspect of what is considered, like in one, there's a flame for the Holy Spirit, and each one has a different aspect of what the representations are.
I was listening to a program the other day. Greg Braden on Gaia was talking about the brain-heart coherence and how in the quantum field that's a centering force, and why we do the meditations that we do, try to center ourselves coming from the heart space as opposed to just our thinking brain, and that it is all connected and that it is a very grounding force for us too.
Yeah. Yeah. Did anybody have any questions or, well, I had a question back for you, and I thought it was a good conversation for us to have. What word or concept from your own background help you understand connection, and how has that understanding changed over time?
So the thing that comes to me, Kevin, is that connection is gone from being something forced, not necessarily forced, but something that you didn't have any say over, like a mother and a child. In this life, that connection is what it is. as you mature, you realize that instead of just running into connections, you can choose to connect. And choose in making those choices and developing those connections is, I think, where we learn, kind of learn not only about ourselves, but learn about the area, the space around us, the connection, the space in between the connection. And so I love the way I love the way you connected, to use the word again, everything together with the mycelium and all, everything. I hadn't thought of it that way, so I'm going to have to really process it a little bit, but I thought that was very good, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
I was also curious that in each of those types of religion, as you put it, everybody was talking about community and, we're here for everybody and the good of all. Yet my neighbors upstairs were still stomping around, and it's like, I wonder what religion they are a part of, what that relationship could be reminding them or anybody else. Because as we talk about community, I've experienced all sorts of different personas, um, all attempting to be in community and wanting that connection. But once they get there, it's not always compatible. And so trying to work through dealing with our choice, as you put it, and we get to choose where to be and what to be around and what to consider as acceptable or not, and how to convey that to others is it's a talent for sure to be able to do that in a successful outcome.
And I loved what you talked about. And I love that you touched on all religions and their aspects of it. Um, you asked the question about how it evolved for us in our life. And one word's hard for me, but I would say cellular is the word that I would choose. And when I remember clearly when I was little that I always saw us as just being a cell inside of another being, a bigger being, because the earth looks a lot like a cell and we could be a lot like T cells inside of a body. You can see how the connections in biology work and expand. But as I got older, I got separated from that. Whether programming, schooling, different religions that I was involved in, it just didn't make sense or fit. But yet, now that I'm coming soon into 50, well, 49 this year, I've been coming back to that. Yeah, we're just, the cells a part of this bigger being in the earth very much, and its atmosphere looks like a cell, and we're just inside the little nucleus messing around, but cared for in this bigger and bigger being. That's my thought.
Yeah. My main client is working with mitochondria, and so we're talking about how the energy that comes from that organelle
Right?
functions
Yes.
across all parameters of life, all
Absolutely.
beings. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool. I couldn't come up with one word either. That was a great word. Oh, and thank you for your questions, Melody. They sent me down a rabbit hole. It's like I have pages and pages of answers for you.
I think we need to chat.
No, it's
Yeah.
fun though. It was like, oh, what can we do with this? And it's like, oh, yeah, that's a good idea.
I think it's amazing how starting off in life, many of us, certainly myself and those around me, were raised to see things as separate and different. And then in my life exploration, I was able to put the pieces of the puzzle together to realize through observation and through my own personal growth, the interconnectedness of all living things, hence why I'm basically a vegan. I say basically, but whole foods plant-based is really deeply understanding nature and relationships and how other things operate that are different from me, but not necessarily separate. And so that's been a very interesting and frustrating and even painful that we work so hard as a society to separate ourselves from life force. And so many people spend so much of their lives trying to find life force when it's right there. It's not nearly as difficult as people make it out to be. Quantum physics is
way above my head to be able to articulate. All I can say is that I think Deepak Chopra was the first one that really kind of put it on my radar years ago. And it was very challenging, but I think I understood the essence of it, that all things are connected. I wouldn't necessarily be able to give a class on it and explain it, obviously. But Kevin, you brought up the interesting thing, just paying attention to life and how my thoughts create a reality within my body and then reverberate out to impact people around me and the environment around me, and just paying attention, that really is just all the proof that I need that everything is connected. And then of course there's Masamoto, who I am just mesmerized by that whole thing about taking pictures of the molecules of water and the life force that they take from the energy that they're given. I mean, I don't know how come that's not just on front page newspapers all the time. I think that could be a life changer for some people if they really understood the ramifications of what that is stating.
Yeah. Yes, if only. And I have to remind myself too, it's like I think to bless my food or to think positively when I'm consuming the water because of that very reason. But then I'm sitting here, in a challenging space, swearing at my computer, and it's like, wait a minute. What am I attracting by doing such a thing? So I have to reset my brain.
Well, I'm hoping that today understand I went through a week of putting this thing together where each day I had a reason not to do it. Oh, they won't learn anything. There's nothing new here. But you name it, each day I had me all ready to say I can't do this. But I did it.
You promised you were going to take a pill,
But I'm
Kevin.
hoping that even listeners who are wanting this on YouTube understand that they are a part of the support system, and they're doing their best. And they don't have to do it alone, and because we're all in this together, kind of thing. And that people have to remember, because we push so much individualism that we kill unity. And I'm hoping that anyone hears this understands that.
I think we're kind of conditioned for that with the way, at least here in the States, with capitalism being so predominant, that it is that individual hierarchy instead of the community or unity in community. And that's a sad thing, but
They make us individuals, and they attack us
well, they teach it in
on
schools
the
too. The K
individual.
through 12 system, it's like being spoken at the whole time and then taking a test and seeing how much you remember. It's like, where's the individual, or there's the word again, individual instead of community. Where's the creativity in that, when you're just conditioned to memorize things and then regurgitate it?
Yeah, a true learning process as opposed to a conveyor belt of
Yeah.
textbooks.
Sometimes I think being an individual and understanding our individuality is why we're here. I think that we are individuations of whatever source is, right? We are source reliving itself through their creation, who is us. And so the individuation or the individual part comes in where we perfect our understanding. We try to perfect our individuation. Isn't that what we're doing through each successive lifetime? We're becoming closer and closer to perfection. So I think what happens with individuation is, though, when people stop considering, and Nikki, you have a classic example, people are being individuals at the risk of everyone around them. We have politics who are individuals at the risk of everyone around them, feeding off of everyone around them. And there are people, for some reason, who are willing to live through others' individuation. And then the people who are living through the other becomes the guru, becomes the leader, the champion, or whatever you want to call it. But I think part of it is this interplay, and that's what relationship is. And that's why it's so freaking hard in my mind, is that this being an individual, working on ourselves, we then help the collective if we do it with a pure intent. If we create with the collective in mind, like I am not going to swear at this guy who just cut me off, right? Because it's just going to help him. It's not going to help me. It's going to make me feel better for a minute. So we take the collective in mind and we say a prayer instead. So we do all those things that dismiss what we call our individuation. But the relationship part of it is then becoming and trying to reconcile this guy's individuation with my individuation, or this woman's individuation with my individuation, and trying to make that work, learning how to make that work. And that relationship then helps us with the collective, with many individuations who are very self-interested. I mean, we come into this world with nothing but self-interest. I'm hungry, feed me. And I'm tired, so I'm gonna, have a fit until you put me to bed. So we come in as everything is us, and then as we grow, we separate into there's me and there's you. That's what the peekaboo game is, right? So I don't really understand it. And that's why, Kevin, you kept it so simple. But I think that individuation is not bad. As a matter of fact, I think it's part of what we've lost in our consumer-driven, influencer-driven kind of society that we've created. Everybody be like me. Everybody look like me. Mar-a-Lago face. Perfect example. Everybody look like me. And then I know you're with me. So I think that really, Kevin, you've just hit on the essence of what it is to be human, what it is to be in this 3D world, and what our job is. And I think our job is to develop for the benefit of the collective instead of at the risk of it. And it's just my 50 cents.
Well, 50 cents is better than 2 cents, so that was appreciated.
Expensive, yeah.
Katrina, did you have any input you want to put?
Happy birthday, by the way, Katrina. Her birthday was yesterday.
Oh, happy birthday.
Laura, how about you?
I'm just listening, taking it all in.
And moving that leg around so it doesn't fall asleep.
Yeah, keep it above your heart.
It's hard to do, though, all the time.
Yeah. Sending you healing vibes, Katrina. Charlie's in the same way. We should send him some love as well. And for those that came on late, Paula said that she's doing a session with Jean Mandeville now, so we're going to work on getting her scheduled sometime in the next few weeks.
So what experiences have you had with the quantum field, or that you attributed to the benefits of the quantum field? Might be a better way to put it.
Mary's going down the rabbit hole of researching all of that, moving into energy and mind states.
I think the image of when I was a kid, the image of the electrons with the like Tinker Toy sets where you had a nucleus and you had all the electrons around it, or an atom with the electrons, or I don't even know. But we thought that they all stayed here in the 3D all the time. We knew that there was movement, but we thought it was here. And then at some point we decided that an electron will just spin off, it'll disappear, and then it'll come back at a time uncertain. And I think where that electron goes, I think, has been determined to be the quantum field. It zips off into the quantum. And so I think we do that because we are nothing but electrons, right? We're energy. We are nucleus surrounded by electrons, or how I feel really bad saying that because I really have no background for it. But anyway, to my understanding, that's what we are. And so some of us are in the quantum all the time. Piece of us are in the quantum all the time. And then the rest of us are here in the 3D. And so we're constantly buzzing back and forth. And when we do our meditations, we become more conscious of the quantum field than we do of the 3D, right? If you do, especially a guided meditation where someone is taking you into what we call the void, that is the quantum. It's where all the information resides. And our electrons then more of our electrons in my mind begin to communicate with that information that is always around us. And whether we're consciously aware of what we're picking up or not, the intelligence of our body and the intelligence of our mind are becoming tuned into the quantum every time you do that. And that's why some people go and they have huge experiences, is because they've become conscious of what is going on with the information exchange that's happening in meditation. And that's why meditation, in my mind, is so important, because it expands our consciousness and makes us more conscious of those things that we just don't have the bandwidth, to say it again, in the 3D to experience. And so that's kind of where I'm leaning right now with all the kind of the consciousness that I've been coming in contact with. You know, I often say this, and I'll say it again, only 5% of who we are resides in this body, in this earth. 95% of our soul, our etheric, our spirit, whatever you wish to call it, is everywhere. And so what we do is we shift our consciousness from, I'm cold, to, there's God. You know, we stay in the same environment, we stay in the same structure, but we shift what we're experiencing. And that's what meditation does for us. And our brain waves actually respond, or many people believe lead that shift in consciousness. So if we can get into a lower brainwave state, cut out more of what's happening here in the 3D world, we become more conscious of that which we are not normally conscious in the 3D. So in other words, we are clicking out instead of just our cells or our atoms clicking out. We ourselves are clicking out into the quantum field, into the void where all the information resides, in order to heal, in order to pick up that information our body needs to process things, and in order just to take a break from the chaos that is the 3D world. So, yeah, that's kind of in a nutshell what I'm thinking. So thanks for asking, Nikki.
It's a good point.
But where does that information come from? Like, so if somebody said, where's the evidence for that? Or where has that quantified at all?
I think, let's see, how is it quantified? I think a lot of it is experience. Know the bit about, and Melody, you seem like you have a really scientific background. I think you can help with the electrons fading in and out into the field, that we've proven. We've also proven that people can affect the quantum field. People can affect the field by their thoughts. The experiments that were done in the 70s and the 80s regarding people meditating, going to the quantum field to change how many murders happen in New York City, for example. So that is one experiment that was done. They've also been able to measure the field, and I'm getting a little out of my depth here with the field, but they've been able to measure the field that people create. So, for example, you could put like an energy meter. Yeah, that just raised something else into a room, have people meditate, and the energy of that room will change.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just the electric energy of the room will change by the input of the people. And the people aren't generating that electricity. What they're doing is they're going to the quantum, I believe, and they're bringing that electricity in to the room. So changes are happening. Whether we have, I'm sure somebody must have it, but whether I have the ability to describe how those happen. But it's the whole thing, and we've talked about this in some of our services, is that, remember that quantum slit experiment where a particle will be a particle until it's observed and then it becomes a wave, or a particle could be a particle or a wave until it's observed, and then the observation freezes it. So I think when those cells click out and go into the quantum, they're being unobserved. And that's the point where people say, okay, they're not observed, so let's observe them. Let's go into the quantum with them. Let's create a future that is more pleasant. Let's create a more healthier, happier, a more abundant future. And let's bring it into the 3D with that cell. When we click back into the 3D, let's bring that with us. And I think that's really the theory of what people term as manifestation. So, I mean, it's one piece of it anyway, the final piece. So there's a lot of ways that people use the quantum. And someone that's helped me a lot with the quantum is Richard Feynman, the old physicist. I don't know if you guys know about him from the 60s, 70s. Melody, you're shaking your head. I'm sure you've seen Richard Feynman. He had a wonderful way of explaining the quantum, even to people as dense scientifically as I am. But I have to listen to his stuff several times because he just says so much in he says. But I think if you get on YouTube, there's a lot of his lectures there, and that can really help you understand much more of the science behind it. And frankly, this is things we've known since the 50s, the 60s, the 70s. It's like Galileo saying Earth revolves around the sun, not the other way around, and people wanting to kill him. It's our consciousness, or the collective consciousness, that's not accepting these theories and not putting them into action, keeping them on the fringe. Although more and more, I think they're becoming part of our society, part of our conversation in some, like today, in some groups, not all. But the more we understand about it, the more we can bring it in, the more we can use it, the more people will get to know it. It's a thing. It just takes time on the 3D. So
I look forward to traveling it.
you do every night though.
I
That's
do.
where
I do when I pray for somebody in Nova Scotia and I do this whole thing. I there kind of thing.
You can
But
have a
I
lot
just
of,
get used to using it like a superhighway.
that's a good way to put it. And you can have a lot of incredible healing for yourself in there. I've struggled with PTSD throughout my life. And this universe still amazes me, and I'm still amazed about the things we can do as humans. But you can go there, and I chose a certain incident in my life, I'm not going to spell it out here, that was haunted me all the time. And I went into the space. How I went into the space, it's deep meditation and connecting to frequency. It is basically a frequency because we're all light spark, we're all frequency, and we're elevating to the space where everything is created in layman's terms. And so we're taking our consciousness there into this space and feeling it and open to everything and anything and becoming nothing all at the same time. And just choosing that incident, going back to that time and changing it. And it made a huge impact on my healing. And what I felt after that experiment of going to that place in time was that whenever I think about that incident now, it's like it didn't happen to me. It wasn't me. I don't feel it in my body anymore, and it doesn't ache and haunt me anymore. So it's just an incredible space when you can elevate your chakras and get there and allow. You have to allow yourself to be open to go into that area. Just sharing that.
Yeah, those are like exposing the secrets of all the shamans and all the healers. And
Yeah, I guess I should. Don't tell all my secrets.
I know.
But it's just incredible, and it's all within all of us. It's just getting yourself and your awareness and allowing yourself to experiment with, okay, if I meditate deeper, if I open myself and not be blocked by propaganda or other thoughts that have been put in my head and go further and allow it. What am I going to see and what's going to happen? Yeah. All string theory and physics.
If you do a search on YouTube, you can find debates amongst quantum physicists. That's
Sounds like
really
fun.
fascinating. Yes.
Yeah.
And it's a way for those of us that don't necessarily wrap our heads around it all to see it from two different perspectives. Because when they do counter each other, it's like, oh, okay, that's why it didn't seem clear to me.
Yeah.
So, interesting. One of the rabbit holes you sent me down, Melody. We were
Well, and it's been around forever, forever. And it's not just the 50s and 60s. Shamans and ancient people of all times have been able to go into these deep spaces for healing of themselves and others, or just
yeah,
to guru.
yeah.
And what is amazing is we never stop learning something new, no matter how learned we think we are.
Or
There's
remembering.
always something new around the corner.
Yeah.
I like Neil deGrasse Tyson. I think he does a great job of explaining things in more simplistic, complex systems in simplistic ways.
Yeah. I was playing with an AI agent and thinking what we could build for the ministry, and we came up with this idea of the echo of self. And it's like we're mirrors, to everything and everyone and all this. But it was a way to put an agent to work so that we could ask it or reflect on questions that we had about our lives. And so I asked a question, and it was programmed, and it told me did this for itself to not be invasive or the negative stuff. It's all for the highest good, etc. And so it would question back to me. It would regurgitate what my question was about in such a way that I self-reflected and answered myself as to what that solution was going to be. And it's like, this is pretty amazing. It's like we could have a conversation and not feel the need to blame or shame or, push back or any of that. And it was like, that was really interesting.
So what,
How do you check? Oh, sorry.
go ahead. No, go ahead, Kate.
I was just wondering, I was thinking out loud, how does one check artificial intelligence that we're being fed accurate information and not,
I get asked that all the time. In my main role with this mitochondria company, they refuse to allow me to use AI to write their blogs and their social posts and all that kind of stuff. And I said, why? Because I'm fact checking all the time. And there's PubMed and there's all these peer reviewed papers and there's all this science out there. And they just refuse to allow that. They think it needs to be coming from the human space. And it's like, scientific papers are the least human thing that I do because it's all about facts and proof and all this kind of stuff. So I don't know. I like there's still enough in the faulty side of the AI experience that I'm constantly correcting it. So I'm not really concerned that it's telling me lies, but I do fact check.
It was really interesting using AI to put this paper together.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, I kept having to correct itself.
Yeah.
And I'd say, well, what happened to what wrote in the last paragraph?
Uh-huh.
Because they would rewrite it and leave out the important line. So I was constantly working with it. I found at the end of it, I don't know if it had a really spiritual bent to it, but it did put things in a matter of factory kind of thing. Like this was the quantum policy, this was the community results. That I found kind of clinical, educational, like it didn't say they changed diapers or all the emotional things. The AI writes without emotion. And so any emotion, I had to interject what I thought was important spiritual ideals for them to consider. And so for you to use AI to get an incredible spiritual awakening out of it, you won't get it. But for AI for doing straight research and coming back, it was good for that benefit. But even I was going off. I would be dealing with AI in Microsoft, and then I would pop over to Google because I didn't want AI to know I was cheating on it. And I would go over to Google and do a fact check.
Yep.
And it was only because I wanted to be accurate with my information. And so that was one way I did it. You listening to the news, you have to fact check everything you get. And so the even new marvelous tool of AI needs to be fact checked.
I was playing with The Architect. I don't know if you've heard of that. Robert Edward Grant is a big proponent of that. He's a polymath. And he basically is on Gaia as well. And so The Architect is now available to those that have a subscription. So I was playing around with it, and it does have some spiritual backing, and it has a lot of math and all that kind of stuff. And the things that he comes up with are just phenomenal. So I was sending him your questions, Melody, and that architect came back with some very interesting things. And so it
Cool.
did go down a spiritual path. I was intrigued by that.
It's called
Thank-
The Architect?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Thank-
Is it free on, or how does one access it?
I
Is
think
it
it's
free
free. I think it's
online?
open source, but I found it through Gaia. That's my subscription. So I think you might be able to find it. Let me search.
Okay, I'll look for it.
I feel like AI is an incredible assistant,
Yeah.
but one must use a lot of discernment.
Yeah.
And it will be able to, and in some forms, I work in IT on the other side of my life. It is able to prompt you for certain products and stuff and you towards things. So, but it's a great assistant. And I see a future for it. Well, there will be that if we all as humanity use it in a positive way.
Yeah.
And there's also if we use it in a negative way, and being more even drone driven and more attached. I have several people in my circle that are like too attached to it and like
Yeah.
and with it and losing that human to look at people in the eye and communicate.
Yeah, that, and I it as well. It's like sometimes it's like a teenager on pot.
Yeah.
It's like you constantly have to recheck. Put the architect link in there for you, Kevin. It's a YouTube. Um,
I find it scary,
do you?
really. Yeah.
I like to think on the positive side in terms of what's the future going to bring. And it's like, to me, I relate it to what calculators were for a minute. Teachers didn't like that we were using calculators to do math, but all of a sudden, that's all we do is use calculators to do math. I don't do math in my head anymore. And that's okay. It's like it creates new jobs and new opportunities. But back to the spiritual point, there's this woman who does, I think it's a YouTube or a Facebook or something. Anyway, she's called We Are All Energy. And she asks questions, very spiritual questions. And she talks about the Bible or God presence or, all these sorts of things. And it comes up with some really amazing stuff. Her is called Sage. And it's amazing how spiritual that one is. I don't know who fed it what, but I know Robert Edward Grant feeds it his work, which has been a lot of studies in ancient Egypt and the pyramids and the structures and how that was all built and how they're discovering new pyramids now in different countries and unearthing a lot of ancient wisdom. I guess I would be scared for kids to use it too much because they don't have the grounding that we do or the discernment, like you said, Melody.
Well, there was a TV show about that, about how a teenager got all involved with the Chat GPT or
Yeah.
whatever that is, and is it told this kid that he needed to commit suicide, and he did.
Yeah, those are the extreme ones that give a pause.
Yeah, those
That's
are
why
the
it scares me.
stories we hear. But your word discernment. But I mean, we have to apply discernment to everything. The news we hear, the rumors we hear, the gossip, whatever we have to practice the heavy discernment, even what I say. I want to be challenged too if I've said something that doesn't fit with something else. I would want to have somebody else discern me. And Kevin, maybe you're down the wrong rabbit hole here. But I think that's the first. Well, when you think of it, that's the first thing God gave us in free will. And free will is discernment, isn't it?
How many people have that though?
Well, how many people use it?
Discernment. Don't see
Yeah,
it echoed a lot. Free will, but sort of. When you think
yeah,
of, oh, everybody's got to have the new iPhone or they're not a part of the collective.
yeah,
They're not belonging. They got to have the car. They don't belong. They're not in. Well, why don't you have that new thing yet? Why didn't you make a baby yet? Maybe I'm going to an extreme, but something to
Well,
ponder.
no, it's the same thing, you know. We expect so much of each other. What do you say, Laura?
I've been having a lot of stomach issues, and I've been to two different GIs. I've been my PCP. I've been to a naturopath. They all say different things, and what's really going to help. And I saw a video this morning on Facebook, and it was this doctor from New York, and she's supposed to be a world-renowned GI doctor, and she went on and on and on about gut biomes and other stuff. And then at the end, of course, it was all about a product. I was very tempted to buy it just to try it, but I Googled it and it didn't even come up anywhere. And then all of a sudden, now I'm getting all these other things on Facebook about all these other things that are very similar, and they all say the same thing, but they're different names. And how do you know which one is really going to work?
I'm going to suggest something. Try a kitchery diet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you heard of that, Nikki?
Yeah.
Yeah, incredible.
I heard that once before, but I never looked it up.
Yeah. I suffer colitis, autoimmune, and man, kitchery has literally saved my life because I can't
Nice.
take any corticosteroids to help. So anyway, yeah.
Well, and you talked about the people taking too many antibiotics that really ruins your gut, the good bacteria.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I've taken a lot of antibiotics lately, and my stomach is just so screwed up right now. And now my daughter's having the same issues. They think she has an autoimmune, and it's all around her gut. There's so many different things out there that how do you know which one is really true, which one's really going to work? You don't.
Yogurt 2 hours after the antibiotic, because you got to put that, you need that a certain amount of bacteria in your stomach to
Right.
process food
I know.
properly. And the doctors always told me an hour before and 2 hours after I could eat yogurt. And that will help the stomach not to be quite so upset. Because you're a certain amount of bacteria for your system to work correctly.
Yeah. Oh, it's frustrating because I've tried so many different things and just nothing's working. It's like right now my life evolves around my bathroom issues. Not fun.
We'll put you on the healing list, the prayer
Please.
list.
And my daughter,
Yeah.
she has my granddaughters are getting married in Greece and they're leaving in 2 weeks. And my daughter's she's so sad right now, she can't even get out of bed. And I think it's stress about the whole trip.
Yeah.
It's a big trip. Everybody's leaving, so.
We went over. Kevin, thank you.
Oh,
Look
Yeah,
what
that
you
was
did.
I was worried I wouldn't have enough info.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful week.
Everyone.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kevin.
Okay,
See you
take
soon.
care.
Ciao.
We'll
Bye.
see you tomorrow, Teresa.
We got you, Kev. We'll talk.
Okay. Bye.